Created with free version for non-commercial use.
Good morning, children. This is Rakshanda Hafiz from Sanskar School, Jaipur, and I had been explaining you chapter number 6 of Vistas on the Face of It by Suzanne Hill. And in our previous two records, we have learned about Derry and Mr. Lamb, who are right now in conversation and are discussing their approaches towards life, where Mr. Lamb is giving Derry explanations and is also asking him questions, which is making the child think and ponder about his own approach towards life, and he is unable to some extent justify his approach that is completely negative, where he feels that people are not accepting him or people are not welcoming him in his life because he has a burnt face, and where he feels that it is very easy for Mr. Lamb to say so because he does not have a disability which makes him look ugly and which makes him appear in front of people
Created with
in a
free
state
version for
where they get
non-commercial
scared
use.
of him or where they are not liking him. Whereas Mr. Lamb says that he enjoys everything that God has created in and around him. He enjoys the nature, he enjoys being in the company of people, he enjoys making jams and jellies out of the crab apples of his garden, he enjoys to listen to the sounds of the bees, he enjoys to observe the weeds growing in his garden. So here when he's talking to Derry and he's telling him that how his approach keeps him happy and how his approach helps him to forget for some time period that he is physically disabled, owning a tin leg and not being so very quick and fast as people of his age or as people with normal two legs are. So this makes Derry a little comfortable with Mr. Lamb, and he starts opening up with him, and he says that I know that when you are telling me all this, that one must have a positive approach, and it is your
Created with
character,
free
it is your
version for
conduct,
non-commercial
it
use.
is your goodness that is what counts in life and not your looks. I have been hearing it for quite a long time, and people pacify me by saying these things only, which hardly matters to me, and I don't believe in this philosophy. So Mr. Lamb says, but then I am telling you that I enjoy all this. I have so many friends around me. There he says, but I am not your friend. So he says, but you are not my enemy also, because up till now you have not harmed me and I have enjoyed your company, and I feel that we are going to meet as good acquaintance. It's as good as being friends. I want to tell you that when I see a beehive in my garden, I actually see the bees humming. For some, it might be a sound that is not at all pleasant, that is disturbing and irritating, and they might call it is buzzing of bees. But for me, it sounds like a music. It is humming of bees.
Created with free
So it
version for
depends how
non-commercial
people
use.
look at things. I look at things in a positive manner and in an appreciable way. I appreciate things that are around me, and I enjoy their uniqueness. I enjoy their beauty. For which Derek says that I too love the sounds of the rains. I too love seeing people happy. And he says, Mr. Lamb, that you are someone who's very special and very peculiar. And you ask me things and questions that are very, very different, and that leaves me with a complete thought of again revisiting my approach towards my life. I also like this place. I also like a house with no curtains. So he says, these doors of my garden are always open for you and you can always come here. So the welcoming approach of Mr. Lamb makes Derry a little confident about himself, and he comes out of
Created
his
with free
shell
version for
a little
non-commercial
bit
use.
to interact more comfortably and more happily and eagerly with Mr. Lamb. So when Mr. Lamb says you are always welcome in my garden, it really surprises Derry, and he says, can I? Because he is just a kid of 13 or 14 years old. He's just a teenager, and he really needs to be understood. He really needs to be counseled, and that is what Mr. Lamb does for Derry, and that is what makes a difference in Derry's life. Mr. Lamb also tells him that I do not take my physical disability as a hindrance or as a blockade of me living my life happily and satisfactorily. He gives him an example of a lady who was scared of her death through and throughout, and she closes herself in a room and then finally dies by the painting of a room falling on her head and leading to her death. So he says that
Created with
certain
free
things
version
are
for
inevitable
non-commercial
and you
use.
cannot close yourself and shut down yourself and not allow yourself to live, because what has to happen will definitely happen. So you need to enjoy your life, you need to live your life, you need to come out of your fears, and you need to see the world with a complete different approach. And the approach should always be very, very positive. Mr. Lamb tells Derry that he can always visit his garden, for which Derry says that I know, but my mother will not appreciate me visiting you quite often, because one, it is quite a big distance me coming here, and secondly, you are a complete stranger for me. We have just recently shifted here. So Mr. Lamb says it's not a problem. You can always go back and tell your mother that you enjoyed coming here and you enjoyed visiting here. So he says, okay, fine, I will tell my mother and I will definitely visit you quite often. For which Mr. Lamb here
Created with
now
free
is a
version for
little
non-commercial
apprehensive, and he
use.
says, no, I don't think so. You will be able to visit me again. For which Derry very assertively says, no, I am going to visit you, because now he is liking the company of Mr. Lamb. He is trying to understand this. Yes, it is very important to have a positive approach towards life. Not everybody is blessed with everything in life. There is a flaw in everybody's life, there is a problem in everyone's life. It is only how they look at it and how they live with it. So Derry says, no, I am going to definitely come back. I am going to come back and visit you again. So he says, let's see if you come back and you visit me again. For this, Derry again very stubbornly says, I am coming back and I am visiting you. And Mr. Lamb says, it's time for me to now use my ladder and just climb up and pluck down the crab apples from the tree so that I can make good jellies and good sweets and jams. And he
Created with free
moves on
version for
stating
non-commercial
that
use.
usually people never come back, they just promise that they are going to come back and they are going to visit me and they will offer me their company. He does not make it very obvious for Derry to understand that he is a lonely and an isolated person, because he wanted to bring out Derry from his isolation and from his loneliness. So he just says, okay, let's see whether you come back, because usually people don't come back.
Created with